sense to the financial system. The second thing he has to do is to restore the American dream, to get this economy moving again, because we got in trouble financially in the beginning because there were so many dollars chasing just one opportunity, housing. So people started speculating, doing reckless things, and packaging the home loans, and then having these derivatives. And it all happened because we didn't have another job strategy. So after producing 22.7 million jobs when I served, this economy is going to produce less than 5. We're down 750,000 this year. You can't run a country of over 300 million people only producing 5 million jobs every 8 years. When you do that, nobody ever gets a raise because there's no demand for labor. Even though in every single year of President Bush's term, every year, the productivity of American workers has gone up. They earned raises they never got because there was not enough overall activity in this economy. 90% of the benefits of this decade went to the top 10%, over 40% to the top 1%, no jobs. Median family income, after going up $7,500 a year per family after inflation across all racial and regional lines, has gone down $2,000 a year. While the cost of health care has doubled, the cost of a college education has gone up 75%, the cost of gasoline and utilities and food and everything else has gone through the roof. And we have crisis after crisis after crisis in family after family after family. You've got tens of thousands of veterans coming home from Iraq and Afghanistan with everything from traumatic brain injury to post-traumatic stress syndrome, not sure that there'll be a healthcare system there to handle it. I personally met, when I did 300 separate communities for Hillary from March the 1st to June the 3rd, just 3 months. Never mind all the ones I did in Nevada, Iowa, New Hampshire, all the early states. I did just in those 3 months. I went to 300 separate towns. I was sort of the token redneck for the campaign, you know, they send me out in the country because I speak in language most people can understand. And so I'm out there, and this is the kind of story I heard. I had this woman coming up to me with a kid that obviously had a serious neurological disorder, 10 or 12 years old, not verbal, strapped in a wheelchair, not a wheelchair, a pram, a big pram, because he was the bigger boy. With tears in her eyes, she said, look, I'm here because of energy and health care. Little town in Indiana, I would bet anything she voted for President Bush at least once. I was in this little rural town. And she said, my husband can't be here tonight because we lost our small business. He had such a good small business, trucking business, but the fuel prices put him out of business, so he had to take a job as a contract truck driver. And she said, obviously our employer can't insure us because of our medical bills. She said, I'm not mad at it. They can't do it. But she said, when I went to the state of Indiana for some help, they said, lady, there's nothing we can do for you because your husband's earning a living. You should divorce your husband so you'll qualify for Medicaid and he can keep making a living. So she said, I have 3 choices. I can let my child slowly die so we can eat, or we can starve and I can get my child health care, or we can get a divorce. And she looked at me and she said, honey, I'm from rural Indiana. That's not my family values. I was with a woman in Roanoke, Virginia at a rally for Senator Obama just last week who came to one of my meetings in the primary season. Her husband is an accountant. They have 3 children. The oldest, 12 years old, has autism. And it's a pretty severe case. I met the young man. They have 2-year-old twins, both mentally retarded, one with half a heart. So the accountant had been a frugal man, had saved money, and they quit work so she could qualify for Medicaid. And he spent their entire life savings so these 3 kids could get some health care. And then he started taking contract work back. Because he was an accountant, he could do a little here and a little there. And they were about $1,000 away from making so much money that they could no longer get any health care. And this mother is there weeping to me, saying, what am I supposed to do? The state says the only thing we can do is get a divorce. Now, Last week, let's talk some numbers. Healthcare numbers. We're 29th in infant mortality. 1 in 8 cancer patients is at risk of dying this year because they can't afford their medicine. Huge numbers of people can't afford medical procedures anymore. I'll give you one I know a lot about because I used to work in this area. I read a story about a woman with multiple sclerosis who needs an MRI every year. And the reason is you have to monitor very closely the progress of their conditions. And now, thank God, we can have people remain really active and not go to bed within a year or two and live pretty long lives and pretty vigorous lives, but you have to really calibrate your diet, your exercise, your medication, everything, and you've got to know exactly where you are. And this woman is not going to get her test this year because she cannot afford a copay. Meanwhile, we're paying 50% more for health care than any country on the face of the earth, while 16% of the people never get any insurance, 30% of the people are without insurance at some time during the year, and 45% of working age Americans last year said they had trouble paying their health care bills. That's the shape we're in. The store is not being minded on economics, on education, on healthcare. And this is a big deal for you looking to the future. I said before that we got into this financial mess for 2 reasons, not one. The one you know about, too much risk, too little regulation, too much debt. My mama used to say, if something sounds too good to be true, Bill, it probably is. Okay? The other reason was, in the beginning of this decade, we had all this money sloshing around, and there was no good place for it to go except housing. In the first 5 years of this decade, 40% of our growth came from housing and 60% from consumer spending, which is why people keep getting... Last week I was home and Hillary was on the campaign trail. In the middle of all this, I got 2 robocalls for credit cards. Still, I thought, hello, you know, it was like a bizarre deal. But that was what kept our economy going. Because we didn't have a job strategy, because we walked away from what would be a godsend for us, a serious commitment to energy independence through clean energy, Among the many, many things I am profoundly grateful to Harry Reid for is we had a conversation right before this financial aid package passed. And I told him, I said, Harry, you know, there's a Dutch company that's willing to put 800 jobs in my home state, Arkansas. We're hurting down there to manufacture windmills, but they're not going to do it if we don't reenact the tax credit you get for wind and solar energy. It's a huge deal for you out here. Huge. Nevada could become the first state in the country that is truly energy independent if you get the right fights global warming, improves national security, creates a zillion jobs, and lowers your utility bills. It's a win, 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 win. Right? So, a lot of people didn't want to do it. He got it in that bill. Harry Reid did. So you can thank him because he got thousands of jobs this state here because he did it. Okay. So the job of the next president is to fix the financial system and restore the American dream, restore broad-based economic growth by dealing with energy and healthcare and education. The third thing the next president's got to do is to restore America's standing in the world, to make us more friends and fewer enemies. And it won't be all that easy. It won't be all that easy. The world will like it, and I'll talk about this more in a second, but the world will like it if Senator Obama wins because they think he's a modern person and cares about the rest of the world. His father was from Africa. His mother's second husband was from Indonesia. He lived there a while. Then he lived in Hawaii, where a majority of the people are of Japanese, or Okinawan, or Filipino heritage. And then, you know, he has his roots in Kansas, and so they like that. They feel good about that. But they want to see us say to them, we're going to work with you whenever we can and act alone only when we have to. We want a strong military, but we know in this world military force has to be an absolute last resort, not a first option.